But tonight, our top story and our continuing focus on the situation in Afghanistan that remains turbulent. Several countries, including India, now focusing on airlifting their citizens from the troubled country. The situation on the ground slightly better today, but there is still concern. The Taliban have reached out to government officials urging them to join work. The extremist group in a press meeting a short while ago, however, made it clear the Sharia law will apply across the country. We'll bring you an Afghanistan perspective with top voices in a moment. But first, our top story from the ground from Kabul.
All roads in Kabul lead to Hamid Karzai International Airport. A day after Afghanistan's capital saw frenzied crowds looking for a ticket out of the country, some sense of order has been restored. The Taliban now control access roads to the airport, which means anyone wishing to gain entry to the airport's main gates has to pass their checks. Several countries, including India, US and the UK, are scrambling to evacuate stranded citizens and staff from the city that has been gripped by fear and panic. Over 640 people crammed into an American C-17 Globemaster III that took off from Kabul. The passengers included women and children. An Indian Air Force C-17 aircraft on Tuesday brought back 120 officials, including the last batch of the embassy staff, ITBP personnel and 4 media persons.
You cannot imagine how great it is to be back home. I tell you, after 2 weeks of very intense work, very complicated situation.
Taliban is yet to decide on the government structure. In its efforts to reassure public, the Islamic extremists have announced an amnesty for government officials, asking them to return to work. They have also declared women can work and attend classes, but the ordinary citizen is not taking any chances. Some were seen blacking out women's faces from posters and walls. In its earlier avatar, the Taliban followed the Sharia. These visuals today brought back memories of those days. Afghanistan of 2021 is not the Afghanistan of 1996. But will the Taliban change with the times? Bureau Report, India Today.
Will the Taliban change with the times? What does the rise of the Taliban mean for the Afghan people? My first guests are all Afghans from different parts of the world. Ariana Delauri is an Afghan-American filmmaker and activist. She joins me from Los Angeles. Masood Hussaini is an Afghan Pulitzer Prize-winning photojournalist. He joined me from Amsterdam. And Fazal Haq Hakmal is a US war veteran who's also an Afghan citizen who's worked with the US in Afghanistan. So thanks all very much for joining me. I also hope to be joined by an Afghan ambassador in a moment from Sri Lanka. But Ariana Delauri, let me come to you first, because what is one of the areas of concern is with the rise of the Taliban, what happens to the independent Afghan women. Today, the Taliban administration says Sharia law will operate. Women can work, but with hijab. How do you respond? Do you see the Taliban in any way giving space to women? Is that a big concern?
It's absolutely an immense concern. The Taliban have shown zero signs of change. It's appalling that anything about any normalization of the Taliban has been accepted by anyone in the international community. Instead of speaking from my own words, I would like to share a few words from the women on the ground. I've been in a message thread of 47 women for the last week, and I'm getting nonstop messages from them. My friend and I transcribed some of their words. So I just would like to say some of their words.
Sure.
They said, I am disappointed, very disappointed in women in power, women in government, and women in media. We just want a normal life without the Taliban. We just want to freeze the gains and achievements of the past 20 years. Is that too much to ask? They said the world left us alone. They said women's situation in Samangan is not good, especially the girls. They are in a very bad situation and have anxiety, and the Taliban put a lot of conditions on them. They cannot leave their homes without a man. A woman was shot in the village for not wearing a burqa or having a male escort. Why would they shoot her like this? They said, we were left alone. We were handed over to the Taliban. They said, America sold Afghanistan to Pakistan. They said, don't let this happen so easily. The world played a really bad game with us. And then the worst one that I read was, let me be honest. I'm trying to be strong, but I can't. I can't breathe. I can't trust anyone. I'm going to kill myself if they come to Kabul. This is the last thing I can do for myself. I will write and I will fight till the end of the line. So she wrote me that before they got to Kabul. I mean, when I'm reading these, it's just, I don't understand why their voices have been so silenced. Mm-hmm. It's just really, really an atrocity.
So you don't go along with those who believe that this is a new Taliban in any way, which may reach out to women. You believe this is the same old group. It's simply that the clothing may be, that nothing really has changed when it comes to attitudes towards women. Am I correct?
Absolutely. Not at all has anything changed at all. 100% they are the same group. And this was just a complete gaslighting of the women. This is just a complete failure. I am so appalled. And for me, you know, I've spent a significant amount of time there. I know Masood, who's also on the call. I've watched people like Masood's incredible work for their country. Mm-hmm. And I've watched with pride. I you know, in 2002 was my first trip back, and I watched little kids grow up and become the most outstanding people. And I just also want to say to you, like, India has been so wonderful to Afghanistan. I watched the contributions of India, so I saw it on the ground. So I watched a generation come of age. I watched them build their country back up from nothing, you know?
So so Masood, you know, from what we are hearing, and this is interesting, what is being suggested, that an entire generation is what Ariana Delauri is saying, has emerged post-Taliban. They're all 18, 19, many of them, post-2002. What happens to them? What's your sense, Masood? What's your biggest fear today as an Afghan?
Well, for sure that one of my first fear and concern is that we will lose the 20 years achievement that we, put our efforts, life, and everything for it. We tried our best. Like, for example, myself, I've been wounded 11 times in Afghanistan, but I tried to do my job to try to bring the information, record the events, and train people and everything, you know. Now, everything that I have done and whatever I tried to take in my life now is zero again. And now I'm completely homeless. You know, this is the concern of many, many other young generation and the generation that who start the republic and democracy in Afghanistan in 2002. So we lost a lot of people, you know, we lost 150,000 people in these 20 years. And now everything is times zero.
So you won't go back? Masood, you wouldn't even think of going back as a Pulitzer Award-winning photojournalist? You wouldn't go back to record? You don't think you'll get a chance to do that anymore?
For sure not. How it's possible? I can't go back. You know that from the time that they captured Kabul, I've been communicated with the other photographers. Taliban fighters and Taliban soldiers do not let photographers to go around with their professional.
So you're saying that, that's the worry, of course. And, right. So both of you are, telling me the concerns that you have, one as a filmmaker, one as a photojournalist. Fazal Hakmal, you're interestingly a US war veteran, but you've seen how the Afghans, the Taliban have sort of marched through Afghanistan at the moment. Do you believe that there is space for civil society in Afghanistan today?
Thank you very much for this opportunity, and I'm glad to be here and joining you and your guests and your audience. First of all, we have got to reflect on who are the Taliban. You have a bunch of thugs, drug traffickers, criminals, and terrorists have come together, and they have literally undermined a legitimate republic. Some of your guests, and I totally agree with them, stated earlier that we worked for the past 20 years nonstop to have a republic, to have hope, democracy. That is all wiped out. More importantly, the national security forces are wiped out. This is exactly what GHQ, ISI wanted to see in Afghanistan, a weak Afghanistan. Afghanistan that is compliant to Islamabad, providing them a secure strategic career. Now, going back to the role of civil society, media, press, women, in all other democratic elements, I do not see a zone of possible agreement with the Taliban. The ideology that they subscribe to, they're primordials. They believe in violence. I do not see them delivering the promise. What they're giving us today is only because they're the focus of media scrutiny.
No, but the question, Fazal, if I may ask, is that if you're saying they're just a group of thugs, they're barbarians, they're drug lords, they've come and taken over the country in the space of a month. The US has melted away. Mr. Ghani and his government have disappeared, have run away. What does that say? What does that say about the state of Afghanistan?
Let me make something very clear here. Through this channel. The Taliban, this is a fait accompli for Pakistani military intelligence apparatuses. This is exactly a fait accompli for Pakistan. The Afghans been up against a nuclear confident enemy, sworn enemy, and that is Pakistan. Pakistan does not want a stable, democratic Afghanistan. They do not want a competitor Afghanistan. They want a compliant Afghanistan because of the border issue we have with them, that because of the cultural and the historical ties that we maintain.
So you're saying it's the Taliban, ISI, Islamabad nexus that's behind this march of the Taliban.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. We do the doctrine of strategic depth. The doctrine of strategic depth that has been widely taught throughout the Pakistani military institutions teaches their young cadets that a weak Afghanistan is in their best interests.
Okay, let me take that to you in a way, Ariana Delavri. Do you believe, though, that most Afghans, given a choice, would completely reject the Taliban? Are you clear that this is a force that only runs because of the gun? Are you convinced across the country, not just in Kabul, but across the country, most people in Afghanistan would reject Sharia law, would not want a country that is run through Sharia law, would want a country that is free and independent in terms of choices that women or indeed civil society make?
Yes, 100%. First of all, I want to point out that as the Taliban were trying to take Herat and parts of the country before they took most of it, the entire country, throughout the whole country, rose up. They were saying Allahu Akbar. They were out in the streets and they were rising up against the Taliban. It is in my opinion, one of the most iconic moments in history, and especially in this whole time of the quote unquote war on terror. It was our people standing up in masses against terrorism, and the world barely even noticed how iconic it was. So it's just beyond, it's very clear that this is a proxy war. And the other thing I want to say is that you can see that in different parts of the country, not just Kabul, like in Herat, 50% of the women in the university, almost 50% of the students in the university were women. Taliban went in, took Herat. They forced the women, students, and faculty out of the university. If you look even in Kandahar, like watching the women come to power there, like how the whole country was ready to come back and had been over 20 years, so many gains. Our people do not want the terrorists, do not want the Taliban. This is a proxy war.
Okay.
And it is 100% clear to all of us that that's what's happening.
Masood Hussaini, is that the reason why we've seen those dramatic images, in your view, of people who are desperate to get out? We'll play some of those images again, desperate to leave the country, packing in like sardines into planes, rushing to airports. We've seen tragic scenes. Do you believe that is because people fear the worst?
Exactly. For sure that people fear from the Taliban, and most of those who were running to get in, on the plane, well, actually it was so dramatic and at the same time so stupid from those young people. But to be honest, that shows that how much young generation hate Taliban. Although that this scene was engineering by Taliban to just show and make the Western shame about what they did in Afghanistan.
You are convinced that the young generation hates the Taliban. You don't accept that there is a division between those who perhaps have been trained or indoctrinated in this Islamic outlook versus those who want a modern outlook. Is that the fundamental battle today in your view?
Well, sure. It depends to the situation. For sure that those madrasas that train the youth in Pakistan to come and to go to around the world, and mostly in Afghanistan, to jihad for Islamabad. Well, they are different, that those people who stayed in Afghanistan and grew up in these 20 years as a new generation, they had studying a lot of values of the Western, freedom of speech and all this. For sure that they don't want to leave, they don't want to stay in Afghanistan under Taliban Sharia law, which is a completely another interpretation of Islam. You know that there are a lot of other interpretation of Islam, and these Taliban, they thought that what we call it, they fell from nose of the elephant, or they think that they are special or whatever, and they just try to confirm and convince the people and the world that we are the best Muslims and this is the real Islam, you know?
Okay. So you're saying very clearly a younger generation wants to break free, in a way, wants their freedom, and that really is the message that you're really wanting to send, all three of you, in a way, that do not judge Afghanistan and what Afghan people really want from the images that we've seen. You believe there is a new generation out there which wants to break free, which does not accept the Sharia law as interpreted by the Taliban. I want to thank all of you for joining me to give us an Afghan perspective at the very top. We hope to be joined in the days ahead by many more such voices from across the world.